If a guy's doing these 10 things, he's already falling for you whether he knows it or not. And you're probably missing every single sign because you're looking for the wrong stuff. Here's what's going to mess with your head. Guys don't act more interested when they're catching feelings. They act weirder, more confusing. Sometimes they even seem like they're backing off. Not because they don't like you, but because they like you way more than they're ready to deal with, and it's freaking them out. I'm going to tell you something that goes against everything you've been told about how to tell if a guy likes you. The man who's really falling for you isn't doing the obvious stuff. He's not texting you every morning. He's not always available. He's not making it super clear. Instead, he's doing these weird little things that don't make sense until you understand what's actually going on in his head. Small things he doesn't even notice he's doing, things that show you've gotten inside his brain in a way that's making him act completely different. Most women think that when a guy really likes them, he'll make it obvious. He'll chase harder, show more effort, be super consistent. But here's the truth that years of watching how guys actually behave has taught me: the men who are developing real feelings, the kind that actually mean something, don't act like that at all. They act confused. They do things that seem contradictory. They give you mixed signals, not because they're playing games, but because they're genuinely confused about what's happening to them. Think about how guys talk about the moment they realized they were falling for someone. They don't say, "I decided to pursue her harder." They say stuff like, "I didn't know what was happening," or "she just got in my head somehow," or "I couldn't stop thinking about her and it was annoying." Because guys don't fall for women in the way we think they do. It's not a decision. It's something that happens to them, and when it does, they act totally different. The 10 signs we're about to go through aren't the ones you've been looking for. They're not romantic. They're not always flattering. Some of them might even make you think he's not that into you, but they're the real signs, the honest ones, the ones that show what's actually happening inside a guy's head when he's starting to fall, even before he's ready to admit it to himself. So if you've been confused about whether a guy likes you, if his behavior doesn't match what you think interest looks like, if he seems into you one day and distant the next, this is your answer. These 10 signs aren't about what he's saying or what he's trying to show you. They're about what he can't help doing when you're becoming more important to him than he planned. Before we get into the 10 signs, let's talk about what it actually looks like when a guy starts falling for someone, because this is where most women get it completely wrong. Falling for someone isn't the same as being attracted to someone or even really liking someone. It's deeper than that. It's when you go from being someone he enjoys to someone who's getting into his head, someone he thinks about when you're not around, someone who's starting to matter in a way that changes how he acts. Guys are really good at handling attraction. They know what to do with it. They can flirt, they can pursue, they can play it cool. But falling for someone? That's different. That's not something they can control or plan for. It just happens. And when it does, it messes with their normal behavior in ways they don't even realize. Most guys won't even admit they're falling for someone until way after it's already happened. They'll deny it to their friends. They'll convince themselves it's just casual. Because admitting you're catching feelings means admitting someone has power over you now. It means admitting you care what happens. And guys really don't like feeling that vulnerable until they're absolutely sure it's worth it. So the signs we're looking for aren't about what a guy is choosing to do. They're about what he can't help doing. The things that leak out even when he's trying to play it cool. The behaviors that show what's really going on underneath whatever front he's putting up. These are the signs that separate guys who are just interested from guys who are actually falling, even if they haven't figured it out yet. The first sign that a guy is falling for you that nobody talks about is he actually gets quieter around you, not louder. Every dating tip tells you that if a guy likes you, he'll talk to you more, engage more, be more outgoing. But here's what actually happens in real life. When a guy starts catching real feelings, he talks less, not awkward silence less, not uninterested less. But this specific thing where he's listening way more than he's talking, watching you more than performing, taking in everything you say like it actually matters to him. Here's what's happening in his head that he'd never explain out loud. When you're just someone he's casually into, talking to you is easy. He can joke, mess around, say whatever pops into his head. But when you start becoming someone who actually matters, someone whose opinion he cares about, his brain starts doing this thing where it second guesses everything before it comes out. A guy who's falling for you doesn't just fill silence anymore. He thinks before he speaks. He edits himself, not because he's being fake, but because you've become someone he doesn't want to screw up with. Most women think when a guy goes quiet, he's losing interest. But watch what else he's doing while he's quiet. Is he looking at you? Is he paying attention to every single thing you say? Does he remember tiny details from your conversations that even you forgot? Because that's not someone checking out. That's someone who's so locked in that he's gone into full observation mode. Think about it this way. When something doesn't matter to you, you talk at it. When something really matters to you, you listen to it. So when a guy shifts from being the entertainer to being the observer, that's not him losing interest. That's him getting more interested than he knows how to handle. The second sign he's falling for you is he starts acting weird around his friends when you're there. Guys have this very specific way they act around their buddies. Loud, joking, kind of showing off, not really filtering anything. But here's what happens when a guy is developing feelings for you. That version of himself starts to feel wrong when you're around. Not because he's embarrassed of his friends, but because he cares what you think of him now. Watch what happens when you're in a group setting with him and his friends. Does he tone himself down? Does he seem a little uncomfortable with jokes that would normally make him laugh? Does he keep checking to see your reaction to things? That's not him being fake. That's him starting to see himself through your eyes and caring about what he sees. Here's what guys won't tell you. They don't change how they act around their friends for just anyone. Most women they date never affect that part of their life. But when a woman starts to really matter, guys start feeling this split between who they are with their friends and who they want to be for her. So you'll notice him getting quieter in group settings or making different jokes or even seeming a little off. That's you mattering enough to change his behavior in spaces where he normally doesn't care what anyone thinks. The third sign is he remembers random stuff you said weeks ago, not the big stuff. Everyone remembers big stuff. But the tiny throwaway comments you made that you don't even remember saying. When a guy starts falling for you, his brain does this thing where it holds on to details about you that don't seem important. Your favorite random food you mentioned once. That story about your childhood you told in passing, the name of your friend from work you complained about one time. Here's what's happening. When someone doesn't really matter to you, your brain treats conversations like background noise. You hear it, you respond, you forget it. But when someone is becoming important, your brain switches into this mode where it's cataloging everything, not on purpose, not because he's trying to remember, but because his brain has decided you're worth paying attention to at a deeper level. A guy who's falling for you will bring up something you said 3 weeks ago like it was yesterday. And when you look at him confused because you don't even remember saying it, that's the tell. That's the sign that you're taking up way more space in his head than casual interest would explain. The fourth sign he's falling for you is he gets weird about you meeting certain people in his life. Not in a bad way, in this specific way where it clearly matters to him what they think of you. Watch how he acts when the topic of meeting his close friends or his family comes up. Does he seem almost too careful about when and how it happens? Does he prep you beforehand about who they are? Does he seem genuinely concerned about whether you'll like them and they'll like you? That's not him stalling. That's him caring way too much about the outcome. Here's what guys think but don't say. When you're just dating someone casually, you don't care if your friends and family love them. You don't need their approval because that person isn't going to be around long enough for it to matter. But when someone is starting to feel like they might actually stick around, suddenly what other people think starts to matter. So if a guy seems weirdly invested in you meeting certain people, if he's particular about the timing or the setting, that's him caring about you in a way that extends beyond just the two of you. The fifth sign is he stops talking about other women completely, not in an obvious way where he announces it, but in this subtle way where women just stop existing in his conversations with you. Think about how guys talk when they first start getting to know you. They'll mention other people they're hanging out with. They'll tell stories that involve other women in passing. But here's what happens when a guy starts falling for you. Those mentions disappear. Not because he's hiding anything, but because other women have stopped being relevant in his brain. When you're becoming the person he's interested in, his brain literally stops registering other women as worth mentioning. Most women don't notice this shift because it's so gradual. But if you think back to early conversations versus now, you'll see it. The mentions of other women just stopped. Not because he decided to hide that stuff, but because his brain has literally reorganized itself around you. And that reorganization is one of the clearest signs that you're not just someone he's dating. You're becoming the person he's focused on. The sixth sign he's falling for you is he starts doing this thing where he finds excuses to be in your physical space without making it obvious. Guys who are just casually interested keep a normal distance, but when a guy is develo, ping real feelings, he starts unconsciously closing that gap. Watch how he positions himself when you're together. Does he sit closer to you than the space requires? Does he find reasons to reach across you or lean in when he talks? Does he touch your arm or your back in passing more than he used to? Here's what's happening underneath. When someone is becoming important, your body starts seeking out closeness because it feels right. Guys who are falling for you will find themselves naturally gravitating into your space, fixing your necklace, moving hair out of your face, touching your shoulder when they laugh. And if you watch closely, they're almost surprised by their own behavior because they're not planning it. Their body is just doing it. When a guy's body language around you shifts from respectful distance to constant proximity, that's not him trying something. That's him falling for you in a way that's showing up physically before he's ready to say it with words. The seventh sign is he gets genuinely bothered by things that hurt you or stress you out. Not in a performative let me fix it for you way, but in this real way where your problems actually affect his mood. You tell him about something stressful at work, and later he brings it up to check how it went. You mention someone who was rude to you, and you can see him actually get annoyed about it. You're upset about something, and he seems genuinely unsettled until you feel better. When a guy starts falling for you, your happiness becomes connected to his happiness. Your stress becomes his stress. Not because he's decided to care, but because his brain has started treating your well-being as important to his well-being. So when something bothers you, it genuinely bothers him. Most women think this is just him being nice or supportive, but nice is listening and saying the right things. This is different. This is him being unable to feel okay when you're not okay. That level of emotional investment doesn't happen with casual interest. The eighth sign he's falling for you is he starts planning future stuff with you without making it weird. Not big future stuff like marriage and kids. Small future stuff, next month, next season. Listen to how he talks about things coming up. Does he say we should about stuff that's months away? Does he mention wanting to take you somewhere when the weather changes? Does he talk about events or activities down the line and automatically include you in them? This isn't him trying to lock you down. This is him genuinely picturing his life going forward and you being in it. Here's what guys won't admit. They don't make future plans with people they're not serious about, even casual future plans. Because making plans implies expectation. It implies continuity. And guys avoid that with people they're not invested in. But when a guy is falling for you, making plans 3 months out feels natural because he's not thinking about whether you'll still be together. He's just assuming you will be, and that assumption is everything. The ninth sign is he starts caring about random stuff just because you care about it. Not pretending to care, actually caring. Watch what happens when you talk about something you're passionate about. Does he ask follow-up questions later? Does he remember details about it? Does he bring it up in conversation when you're not even talking about it? Does he start engaging with it on his own? Here's what's happening. When someone is becoming important to you, your brain starts caring about what they care about. It's automatic. So a guy who's falling for you will find himself actually curious about things he normally wouldn't care about at all, just because you care about them. And he won't even realize he's doing it. When a guy genuinely starts caring about your world, not just tolerating it, that's because you've moved from being someone he likes to someone who's changing how his brain works. The 10th sign he's falling for you is he starts getting weird about the idea of you with other guys. Not possessive weird, not controlling weird, but this specific kind of uncomfortable that shows up when the topic of you being with someone else comes up. If you mention another guy, even casually, does his whole vibe shift a little? Does he get quieter? Does the energy change when you talk about male friends or co-workers? He's not trying to be jealous. He's trying not to be jealous. And that effort is the sign. Here's what's going on. When a guy starts falling for you, his brain begins treating you like you're his even before anything official has happened. So other guys stop being neutral. They become potential threats to something he's already emotionally invested in. And even though he knows he doesn't have the right to feel that way yet, he feels it anyway, because feelings don't wait for relationship labels. Let me show you what happens when you actually understand these 10 signs. Think about a woman who was dating a guy who seemed hot and cold. She thought he wasn't that interested. But when she started paying attention to these signs, she realized he was doing all of them, getting quiet around her, acting different with his friends, remembering everything she said. He wasn't pulling back, he was falling and didn't know how to handle it. Or think about another woman who almost ended things with a guy because he wasn't texting enough. But she noticed he was planning stuff months out with her in it. He got genuinely upset when she was stressed. He stopped mentioning other women entirely. When she recognized that, everything made sense. Understanding these signs doesn't just help you figure out if a guy likes you. It helps you understand what's actually happening versus what you think should be happening. Because here's the truth. Guys falling for you rarely looks like what movies and dating advice told you it would look like. It looks messier, more confusing, more human. And if you're waiting for the perfect, obvious signs, you're going to miss the real ones that actually matter. So here's what you do with this information. First, pay attention to behavior changes, not consistency. The guy who's falling for you isn't going to act the same the whole time. He's going to act different as his feelings develop. Those changes are the sign. Watch for the shift from casual to careful, from surface to deep, from present to future. Second, trust the small things over the big things. Grand gestures are easy. Remembering a random comment from 3 weeks ago isn't. Being genuinely affected by your mood isn't. Automatically including you in future plans isn't. The small unconscious behaviors tell you way more than the intentional ones. Third, look for the things he can't control. Anyone can decide to text you good morning. Not everyone can control whether their body language changes around you, whether they remember random details, whether other women disappear from their conversation. The signs that matter are the ones he's not trying to show you. They're the ones that leak out because his feelings are real. Fourth, notice what's happening with his friends and his future. Guys protect those two things. When you start affecting how he acts with his friends, when you start appearing in how he thinks about his future, that's not casual. That's real. Pay attention to whether he's making space for you in the parts of his life that matter, not just in his free time. Fifth, watch what bothers him. A guy who doesn't have feelings won't be bothered by much. Your stress is your stress. Other guys are other guys. But a guy who's falling for you will be bothered by things that affect you and things that threaten you being his. That emotional reaction isn't something he can fake. It's real or it's not there at all. Sixth, stop comparing his behavior to what you think interest should look like and start comparing it to how he acts with everyone else. Does he get quieter around you but louder around others? Does he remember stuff you said but forget what other people tell him? Is he planning future things with you but not with other friends? The difference in how he treats you versus how he treats everyone else is the real sign. If you've made it this far, you understand that figuring out if a guy is falling for you isn't about what he's saying or what he's trying to show you. It's about what he can't help doing, the small behaviors that show up when someone is becoming more important than they planned for, the changes that happen when casual interest turns into real feelings. The guy who's falling for you isn't going to match the checklist you were given. He's going to be messier than that, more complicated, more human. He's going to do things that confuse you if you're looking for the wrong signs. But when you know what to actually look for, when you understand these 10 behaviors that guys can't fake or hide when they're catching feelings, everything becomes clear. You don't need him to say it out loud to know it's happening. You don't need a relationship label to recognize that his brain has already decided you matter. You just need to pay attention to the signs that actually mean something. The unconscious ones, the honest ones, the ones that show what's really going on under whatever he's trying to present. So stop waiting for obvious. Stop looking for perfect. Stop expecting him to act like a guy in a movie. Start watching for the